This morning, Pastor asked if we would still do a hymn sing this week, and I said sure. And he had mentioned last week we sang the song called "The Old Rugged Cross," if you were here last Sunday, and it was one of Pastor's favorite songs, favorite hymns, and actually it was my father's favorite hymn.
Oh, really?
He loved this hymn.
He was a good man.
He was a good man, the best man. And so I thought, well, let me see if I can find a story about the Old Rugged Cross, and we'll do it again this week, if that's okay with everybody.
Amen.
The Old Rugged Cross was by George Bernard, is his name. He wrote this. And I did find a little story, so I'd like to share that with you today about the Old Rugged Cross.
Amen.
The Old Rugged Cross actually comes from a Bible verse that we all had to learn as children. I know it was something we had to memorize, called John 3:16.
Okay.
Okay? Everybody remember that one?
Oh, yeah.
In school, back in the day when you had to memorize everything. And it goes like this. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life.
Yes.
John 3:16. It's a good one to put to memory and keep that in our hearts. George Beverly Shea recalls seeing George Bernard, author of this hymn, many times at a Winona Lake Bible Conference in Indiana. Though he was a good preacher, a very good one, he would sometimes sing, said Mr. Shea. His voice was not trained or out of the ordinary in any way, but he had great feeling and expression and could really put over a hymn. I remember how moved I was the first time I heard George Bernard sing his own "The Old Rugged Cross." What a distinguished-looking man he was. Slight of build, he was short with glasses. The most memorable thing about him was his long white hair. Well, George Bernard was born in Youngstown, Ohio, shortly after the end of the Civil War. His father, who was a coal miner, moved the family into Iowa. And there, George came to Christ through the ministry of none other than the Salvation Army. It still is around today, Salvation Army. He felt impressed to train for the ministry, but his plans were disrupted when his father's death left him responsible for his mother and sisters. So when his father died, he had to take over the family and take care of his mom and his siblings, which were girls. He was only 16 years old at the time. Instead of theological school, George worked by day, and he devoted his spare time to books at night. Eventually, George's obligations to his family lessened, and he was able to move to Chicago. He was able to marry, and began in ministry with the Salvation Army. Later, he was ordained by the Methodist Episcopal Church and became a traveling evangelist. On one occasion, after a very difficult season of ministry, George realized he needed to better understand the power of the cross of Christ. He later said, "I was praying for a full understanding of the cross. I read and I studied and I prayed and I prayed. The Christ of the cross became more than just a symbol to me. It was like I was seeing John 3:16 leap from the printed page, and take form and act out the meaning of redemption." While watching this scene in my mind's eye, the theme of a song came to me. It took several months for the words to formulate in George's mind. As he preached through the Midwest, George would carry the words with him working on them, polishing them, and sometimes singing them in his meetings. It always struck a chord with his audiences. At last, his hymn was finished. George went to the home of his friends, the Reverend and Mrs. Boswick, and he sang the hymn for them. And after he finished, he looked at them and he said, "Will this do? Is this good enough?" The Boswicks were so moved by that they helped pay the fees to have it printed. And it soon began appearing in all the hymn books across America. So that's the story of the old rugged cross. And I would like to sing that right now, but I want you to meanwhile think about what favorite hymn might call out. So we will sing page 260, the old rugged cross, and because we'll just do verses 1, 2, and 4 right now.